Good morning, and this is the lesson number 4 for chapter number 7, the repetition control structures in Java. So if you happen to open this before the previous 3 lessons, you need to go back muna given that the introduction and other looping structures were discussed on that part. Okay, so let's start. As a short recap, we have discussed on the different loops in Java. We have already had an introduction, and in the previous videos, we already discussed the while loop and the do while. So what we're going to do now is to discuss and present what is the for loop in Java. Again, the loop will not work without its components. So as a short recap, the components of the loop are as follows: the initialization, the condition, the increment or decrement, and the statement in which mo ginapabalik-balik kung execute na to sa loop depending on the problem that we have. Now, for the for loop, again, this is the third type of the loop that we're going to discuss in Java. So the for loop is used when the iteration is fixed, meaning the number of execution is already predefined or identified. Okay? Unlike while loop, and we have the do while loop, we use that one if the iteration or the number of iteration is not fixed. It executes. So for example, there are some problems that can be solved using for loop. For instance, execute the code 5 times. That's obvious since the iteration is fixed to 5 times. That's very easy. For loop na diretso ana. Okay. Print an asterisk based on the number inputted by the user, since we know that the number or the number of asterisks depends on the number of the input of the user rather. So that's we can use also the for loop for that one. Okay. There are many problems that can be solved using the other types of loops, but later once we go with the discussion on the codes niya, you are going to notice na mas dali ang coding when we do the for loop, especially compared to while loop and especially for the do while loop. Okay? So this is basically the syntax of the for loop. First is we have the initialization, in which i-initialize na to ang atong variable. Then the condition. Then the condition is being verified as every time mo balik ang loop or ma-execute mo repeat ang loop. Then the increment or decrement is already being discussed also nga mao siya ang possibly mahimong trigger for the condition to make anong tawag nito, to a certain point na mag-false siya, which terminates the loop. Again, we don't want an infinite loop running in our programs. And the statement in which mo ipabalik-balik ka loop or ipabalik-balik na statement, it can be 1 line, 2 lines, or even 100 lines depending on the need of our code. Even we call that one as we have this nested loop, meaning there's a loop inside a loop itself. Okay, that's also possible in Java. Now, let's have an example here. So we have int I is equal to 0. However, we can declare the variable here inside the initialization na part. I'm just going to show it to you kay para later pas makita tayong difference din niya. Okay? So by initialization part, I is equal to 0 here. Okay? Now, I is less than 5 and I plus plus. Okay. Then, ang ato ada yung part for execution is the system.out.print hello world. Okay. So now, again, initialization, that's the condition. This is the statement to be executed. Then, i-print na niya dayon. Pero anong i-print niya? Basically, our initialization, I starts with 0. Now, pag-check sa condition, is I less than to 5? Is 0 less than to 5? The answer is true. So, i-execute niya ang naasa statement. Thus, i-print niya dito sa ato ang sample output nga output tracing sa ubos as hello world. Okay? With the condition that 0 is less than 5, which is true. Okay? After niya ma-execute, i-run din niya ang increment and decrement tayon. So, for this one, since plus plus ang gigamit, this is obviously an increment na operation. So, I becomes now equal to 1. Okay? So, next na po niya, this is now ning balik nag-execute sa loop. Okay? So, I now, 0 gihapon na siya. However, di na siya i-mind na ato ang execution kay nag-iterate naman ta. proceed na siya dire sa imuhang I is less than 5. The current value of our I is 1. Okay? Previous, nag-iterate ta kay na 1 ang I because nag-iterate man ta. Pag abot sa second nga balik sa loop, meaning pag sa imuhang execution, I now is equal to 1. So disregard na ni siya ang initialization na part. It will work only once at the beginning of our loop. Now is I less than to 5. Since our I is being incremented rather, I is now equal to 1. Is 1 less than to 5. So the result is true. Execute na po niya na. Thus, we have now the second printing of our hello world. After this one, mag-increment na po din siya. Meaning, madugangan na po itong value sa 1. So now our I from 1 plus 1 becomes 2. Okay? Disregard the initialization. Now, it's 2 less than to 5. Okay? And the answer is true. Execute na po niya ang atong hello world. Thus, we have already our third na hello world na execution. Then, iterate na po niya or meaning increment na po niya. I now from 2 becomes 3. Is 3 less than 5? True gihapon. So, i-execute na po niya, giving us another line of hello world, which makes this one 4 lines of hello world na dayon. So, I is equal to 3, then ito na po increment na po. So, plus 1, our I becomes 4. Now, it's 4 less than to 5. Then, still, the answer is true. So, i-print na po niya na giving us the 5th line for our hello world. Then, I++, meaning mag-increment na po ang ato ang I. So, I plus 1, 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. Now, here, pag-abot niya na dayon og pag-abot niya og meaning 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. Now, the loop will exit because your 5 now is not less than to 5. Okay? Muna tayo nga point na dayon na mo exit na dayon na siya sa loop na dayon niya. So, the result of our program is 5 kabuok nga hello world na execution. Okay? So, I guess much better ko i-try na to siya into a code. Okay, let's put this into actual coding. So if we are going to work with the for loop, so again, as presented, so the syntax is for, open and close parentheses, then a pair of curly brace which makes for the for na block ng statement. So this is the open and close, whatever inside here will be our statement or yung ginapabalik-balik itong execute sa loop. Now, inside the open and close parentheses of the for loop is 3 parts na siya. Okay, the first part is again the initialization. This is where we need to initialize a value. Next is the condition. Then we have the increment or decrement dependent sa ato ang code na dayon for execution. Okay, now to put this into a running the program, let's start with the problem. The very basic problem siguro, say print the world 5 times. Ayun. So, as we all know, or as presented in the previous mga discussion, we can just use system to print 5 times. However, if you're going to go 100, 1,000, or something, medyo daghan nag-copy paste, it will be a problem, or not really a problem, but it will take time and the longer number of codes ng atong i-execute. Thus, we're going to make use of looping. For this example, since we are discussing on the for loop, we will be using the for loop for this one. So initialization, condition, increment, decrement, then our statement. So it's obvious here that our result here statement is say hello world. Yun. Ano na siya. Now let's start with initialization. How are we going to initialize a variable? Initialize a variable, let's say I is equal to 0. As simple as that. So we are starting with a variable that is equal to 0. Okay. So for our condition, again, this condition will be check whether or not kung true, execute loop, ibalik na po niya, pag false, ma-exit sa loop. So I will be starting here with I is less than 5. Okay. So I is equal to 0 and I is less than to 5. Here, natin ko increment tayo, I'll be using I++. Okay? Later, we discuss tayo the difference between plus plus and minus minus in terms of the context din niya. So, for this loop, so we have I is equal to 0, initialization, I is equal to 5, less than 5, then I plus plus. So, if we are going to try to trace the output for this one, aning iyahang possible result. Let me just copy this one para mas dali. Maybe in your paper, in your notebook, you can do the output tracing. On some of our activities will be on output tracing. So you can do the execution like this. So we started with I equal to 0. Okay. So I is equal to 0. Then we check tayo on the condition. Is I less than to 5? So the result of this one is true. Okay? So kapag true, ang buhaton sa atong code is mag-print siya og hello world. Okay? Kapag true na siya, again, as presented earlier, execute na. Then, I had na mag plus plus. Then here, our I plus 1 is now equal to 2 na dayon. So the value of our I now is 2. So now I here is 2. Okay. So I 2. So here, as we check, is I less than to 5. Okay. So since 2, I don't know, why 2? Sorry. It's not 2, it's 1. Sorry. Y is 1 because I plus plus from 0 plus 1, your I becomes 1. Okay? Now, on the second iteration or pagbalik sa ato ang execution sa loop, I is now 1. Is 1 less than to 5? Still, the result is true. So, i-print niya ang hello world statement. Plus plus na po din 1 plus plus, 1 plus 1. Now, I is equal to 2. Now, is I less than to 5? Is 2 less than to 5? Same. It's true. So it will print the hello world again. Plus plus. Now I is now equal to 3. Okay? Is I less than 5? Is 3 less than to 5? The result is true. Thus, i-print na po niya ang hello world. Another plus 1 is I is now equal to 4. Now, here, is 4 less than to 5? Again, the result is same true. Ipapod niya ang hello world niya statement. Now, 4 plus 1 or 4 plus plus as I plus plus ato ang i-consider dire sa ato ang increment. Now, I becomes 5. Okay. Now, is 5 less than to 5? The result is false. And kapag false na dayon ang imuhang loop o imuhang condition, i-mo exit na siya dire. So kung naay part sa imong code na dire sa ubos, i-execute pa ni ang other parts sa imuhang codes dayon. Okay? Other part of the codes. Okay. So, now, as we can see here, balik ko na to. Pag 0, hello world. Pag 1, hello world. Pag 2, hello world up to 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 execution of hello world. So this is how you check kung if you want to output tracing the possible output of your codes or your loop, pwede ninyo on. So you have 5 kabok na results. Let's check this one. If pareha ba ang result? So as we have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So meaning we have 5 hello world na output based sa ato ang loop. So nag-start sa 0, then less than to 5 din na siya. Okay? So depending on our loop, depende sa structure sa inyong loop, depende sa initialization and condition mo work dira ang loop. Now, it should be noted also nga si for loop and while loop are sharing similarities. For instance, kapag ang ako ang condition first is false. Kapag mo false ang condition for this one, let's place the output here. Okay? So, similar, ang ato ang I is equal to 0. However, ang atong condition diri is I is greater than 5. Okay? Is I greater than 5? The result is false because 0 is not greater than 5. Then kapag false siya, dili niya ni-execute at all. So, exit na po siya dari. Okay? Once we get to run that one, you're going to observe nga wala siya ma-print na hello world sa ato ang output. So again, as mentioned, this is similar to the while loop. First nga execution niya kapag false ang ato ang condition, matik na niya na ang i-exit ang loop. So if you are needing to execute the program at least once, you do the do while na loop na structure, not the for loop, not the while. Okay? So this is one thing also to consider in selecting your loop. Okay. So now we have here for I is equal to 0, I is ato ibalik to less than 5, I plus plus. Then we will be expecting again similar kanina 5 kabuok na execution sa ato ang hello world. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you want to make this one 100, 1,000, or pila ka number dira, then you're just going to change this one here sa ato ang condition. So I'm putting here now, I is less than to 100. So that will be 100 lines of hello world na execution. Okay? So this is the advantage of loop. So isa lang kabuok pero I can print 100 even if I want to have a 10,000 line of codes na hello world. Observe here, magsige ni siya og print masap na nato diri nga ga-execute pa siya gayo until no ga-execute pa na siya sa iyang loop until na terminate din siya, and that will be 10,000 lines of code for hello world. Okay, so this is the utilization of our, what do you call this, the loop itself. Okay, so balik ko na ako para ma-recall na to. Okay, so let's start with the 4, open and close parentheses, then you have your curly brace. Okay, so initialization, so we can start with I is equal to 0. Okay, I is less than 5. Okay, nanong 5, kaliman na ako karganon ang loop. Okay, I plus plus. Then, I can have here whatever output na necessary or needed sa ako ang tablet. So, for this case, hello world. So, now, as mentioned kanina also, your initialization, your condition, and your, what you call this one, increment or decrement should be able to complement to each other. Para kanina, ang initialization, 0, pero ang iyahang condition false, kaya katong greater than nako. Kapag greater than nako, automatically false din siya, wala ma-execute tayo at hindi ma-execute at least once ang ato ang loop. Okay, so in here, so we can also change this one. Sir, what if gusto ko mag-start sa 1? Kung mag-start ka sa 1, ang ato ang result ani is you only have 4 nga hello world. Ganong 4. Mutro siya sa 1, mutro siya sa 2, mutro siya sa 3, mutro siya sa 4, and pag 5, false. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 lang siya taman. Okay? So try na to run ng code. Since i-change na to from 0 to 1, we'll be expecting 4 lang kabuok nga hello world ang iyahang output. Okay? Sir, gusto na ako nga 5 gihapon pero 1 ko mag-start. You can also this one change this one to less than or equal to 5, or you can not want to less than to 6. Depende na lang din na sa inyong execution. Okay? So, what we have here, yun. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gihapon. Okay? We started at 1, pero ang atong gi-change ang condition for less than or equal to 5. Okay? So, I hope masabtan na ni kay basic raman po kayo ni siya nga execution sa ato ang loop dayon. Okay, so let's modify the problem. Okay, so the initial problem is print hello world 5 times. Okay, let's try this one as print hello world n times. Okay, meaning n means so input. Meaning, the number of times nga mag-print ang hello world is depende sa gi-input ni user. Okay? So, let me just remove that one. Although, later, pareha similar na na kanina sa ato ang output tayo. Okay? So, let's just start with the import java.util.scanner. Okay? Then, for sure, you can remember this one. So, let's have an object of this scanner. So, object scan is equal to new scanner. Then, we have the system.in. Okay? Tapos, since na may input, so we're going to have, let's say, input is equal to 0 as initialization yung value. Tapos, we'll proceed with a print statement. Okay? So, let's have here, enter a number. Okay? Then, we have the input is equal to our object that next integer man pa ikuha. Okay. So, for sure, familiar naman yung kitaan ni, obvious na to na ang kaya ito na siya buhaton, and we know it's working. Okay? So, next dayon is, sige, let's try to run the code na lang para ma-check na to. Again, the practice that I told you before is, i-check na to per component. So, enter code 5, yeah, it works properly. Okay? Siguro, let's remove na lang that one para walay extra nga space kaayo. Mamatoy ga create sa space mong god itong extra nga ln. Okay, 5. Unlike kanina na I space diri between. Okay. So, now, here, the problem is we are going to print hello world n times n means user input. Okay, so di man ta familiar, pakayo kung pila ka buok. So let's run it via code, via loop. Okay, so 4. So let's say int I is equal to 0. Okay, I is less than to 1. Since dili ta kabalo, I specify the rate, iparan na to ang code n times, depende sa user input, and definitely we'll be using this variable here as our condition dayon. Okay? So, our I is less than to the input. So, input meaning katong gihatag ni user na value. So, kung nag-input si user of 5, meaning kalima mag-execute ang loop, given that our I is starting with 0 and mag-increment ang diri nga plus plus. Okay? So just get out the print here, print, say hello world. Okay, now let's run the code. Again, medyo similar kanina, ang condition lang nag-change from the variable nga gi-enter ni user. This one. Okay, so if I'm going to enter 1, okay, then the output is only 1. Okay, if I'm going to enter 5, I will be expecting 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we run the program again. Let's try 2. Okay, we'll be expecting 2. And even regardless on say number i-enter ninyo, for as long as it's a whole number, okay, it will get to print whatever the value is na dayon. Okay, so we inputted 852, then if you want to count that one, definitely it will be 852 nga number of lines for hello world. So this is how we alter or we include a user input nga consideration for the number of loops nga ipa-execute niya. Majority of our execution sa real world programming will require that the user or there are certain nga mga considerations, there are certain nga mga values nga maoy magbuot kung pila ipadagan or pila ang ipakapila ipa-repeat ang ato ang mga code or ato ang loop na dayon. So thus ing-ani ang iyahang result dayon. Okay? So I hope walay question. Kung na mga question, you can go back to mga previous to go back to jump back to previous nga mga parts sa kanina video in order for you to go back with or to review some of the things nga i-consider nato. Okay? So let's have another problem. Okay? So for loop problem, I guess it's really number 2. I'm just going to have this para dili sayang or at least dili ka ng tawag ani makasave time ta o type sa code na or sa part of code. Okay, so for problem number 2, let's try print 1 to 10. Okay, just a simple printing. So pwede siguro na to buhaton nga, let's say for example, print 1, kung magtinamban ta, 2, 3, pero again, okay ra na siya, work ra na siya kung mga basic lang, kung 1 to 3, 1 to 3 lang, 1 to 10, etc. But if we're going to have it siguro on a larger number of scale or processing, kana ang problema na tayo. So let's start lang with a loop, basic loop that we're going to print 1 to 10. Okay? It will solve the problem, but not ideal. So 4, yun. Okay. So kung iparan na to siya from 1 to 10, balik ito kanina, ato ning giparan from 1 to 5, from 1 to input, kanina 1 to 5 naman to gi-modify nato. So, ang atong gigamit na condition adto is int I is equal to 0 tapos I is less than 5. Diba kana man to ato ang gigamit kanina. So kani nga part is gipadagan niya ang loop 5 times. Okay? So since we are working here with printing 1 to 10, we need to run the loop 10 times. So int I is equal to 0, I is less than 2, and I plus plus. So nagsugod ko ani, mamani akong gihatag nga instruction or nga sample kanina. We'll modify the part of the code sa nandayon para in order to work it out. Okay? So, now, if we're going to print values nga naa kang loop, simple ra na siya. Since kabantay mo ganina nga ga-trace tag output, ga-change ang value ni I. Okay? So, ang atong buhaton ani is i-print lang nato si I. Okay? So, here, print, what we're going to do is we're just going to print the value of I. Again, we need to print 1 to 10. Okay? So, just 1. So, for I is equal to 0, so initialization by 0, well, kung nakagets mo, nanay medyo problema na ani. I is less than 10. Okay? The purpose ani is iparagan niya ang loop 10 times. Okay? Then, ang i-print niya every time is I. So, kapulo niya ni ipa-execute. Ang i-print niya is ang I. So, sir, unsay value sa I? The value of I is depende kay ga-change man ang value sa I every time gabalik-balik ang loop kay ga-plus-plus man siya. We'll try to run the code. Yun. Yun. We have the output here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, kung atong ihapon, kapulo nagbalik-balik ang loop. But if we check on the problem tells us to print the values from 1 to 10. It's not 0 to 9. Okay? So, aha kibalita na sayo pa ni. Okay. Definitely, obviously, naata kung ahata nag-start. Okay? Since ang atong loop nag-start man ta og 0, so mag-start yun siya og 0. Just like kanina sa atong output tracing because we started with the value of 0. So i-print niya una is 0 ang imuhang I. To solve this one, sige, i-I nato, i-1 nato. Meaning mag-start siya 1. Okay? Nag-start siya 1, naran nato ang code. Di siya mo start sa 0, mag-start na siya og 1. Okay? So, wala na si 0. Okay, correct na. However, sa pinakalas, wala niya gi-appeal si 10. Okay? Nganong wala niya gi-appeal si 10? Why? Pag abot niya og 10, is 10 less than to 10, false man na siya. Kay 10 is equal to 10 man. So, wala niya gi-appeal ni og execute ang value nga 10. So, there are possible nga mga answers. You might have this one as greater to 11 or less than or equal to 10. So, once we try to run the code again, we'll be expecting a correct output from 1 down to 10 na dayon. Okay? Exactly unsa ang gusto ni problem nato. Okay? So, unlike kanina, so I'm just going to type yung kanina. Kasi kanina man god is int I is equal to 0, I is less than 5, I plus 5. There's no problem with this one. Okay? So, there is, nag-start lang ta og 1. Why we started sa 1? Yung problem tells us that the 1 mag-start. Kanina, wala man to i-print ang 1. Ang ato lang target ani is kalima lang siya ipa-execute. Okay? Thus, we have 5. Okay? For this one, less than or equal to 10. So, meaning, kapulo na to siya ipa-execute given nga nag-start ta sa 1. Okay? So, the result again is we have from the numbers 1 to 10. So if you want to change, so for example, let's say, sir, what if 999 sa taman, sir? Just get to change it to 999, then tanaw na sa result na lang dayon, it will print the numbers from 1 to 999 dayon. Okay? If you want to check isa-isa, yeah, kamo na bahala ana, but definitely it will get to print values from 1 to 999. And observe, pila lang ka-line sa code to gitugang. That's technically tawag ani tulong. Or even, maski buhaton nato ang ingan, Pero na siya. Okay. Like a single line to work with the loop. Okay. So, but again, the purpose also is para di ta dili ta magkalibog-libog kaayo sa ato ang lines. And kung complex atong code, it's not what you call this one, recommended. Okay. So, which is how we're going to print from values from 1 to something. So, sir, what if gusto na ako 10, mag-start ko 10, tapos, let's say the problem is print from 10 to 1, baliktad. So, nag-start nag 10, taman siya sa 1. Okay? So, ato ra i-edit din atong condition dire. Okay? Initialization, condition, and ato ang increment and decrement. So, let's start with 10. Okay? So, kapag 10 siya, dapat at least greater than to 0 siya ang atong consideration. Okay? Kay 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 man dayon. Okay? Tapos, dili ta mag-plus-plus. Instead, mag-minus-minus ta. Okay, para ang value sa I, from 10, minus-minus, mahimo nga 9. Minus-minus, mahimo nga 8. Another, mahimo nga 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kaya pag abot og 0, ma-false ni siya. Then, mo-terminate sa inyahang loop. Okay? So this is how we print 4, 10 to 1 dayon. So once we run the code, then you have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 nga output. So this is the code niya dayon. So dira na dayon nato magamit tong decrement which is minus minus. Okay? So I hope nga kakakuha ni, although na lang tayo mga changes lang kaayo dire o dira, but basic ra na siya nga changes. So let's try to revise the problem. Okay, so print 1 to n. Okay, let's use n na lang gihapon. N as user input. Okay, so what we're going to do now is mag-print out from numbers 1 up to n. So si n, pareha ganin nga problem nga si kapila mag-print ang hello world. For this one, ang i-print niya is the value nga 1 up to the na value nga gi-provide ni user. Okay? So, we're just going to copy and paste this one para for next nga problem para dili ko copy and paste. So, I'm going to have the import java.fill.scanner. Okay? Tapos, we have the scanner. Object scan is equal to, actually, pwede rin ang wala space yun, kaya rin new scanner. Then, we have the system.in. Okay. Ayun, then, say input is equal to 0. Initialize ang variable, pwede na po na wala space. Sa exam, wala ko ginapa-spacing para mas dali ma-check sa Google Classroom, sa Google form. Okay? So, let's just trigger print here. Enter number. Okay? Enter n. Okay. Then, we're going to have the input is equal to, we have the object scan that next. Okay. So, naka-enter na siya. Let's run the code. Check na to ang kaning part sa ato ang code, kaning component, the user input na part. So, enter N5. Okay. Sige. Let's remove yung Japanese. So, na siya 5. Wala, working properly, wala problema. So, let's try to solve the problem. So, print 1 to n. Okay, so 1 up to n. So, n is user input. So, nakuha na nato ahataman. So, katong loop na to gaina, if you can still remember, I is equal to 0 or I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10. Katong 10 ka buok nga 1 to 10 nga execution. So, technically, we're doing the same thing. Okay? So, for int I is equal to 0. Oops, sorry. Equal to 0. I is less than or equal to hindi na 10, hindi na 5, but we are using the input similar ganun nga problem. Then I++. Okay? Kaya nga no, si user man ang nagbuo tong kapila to siya ipadagan ang code. Okay? So, unlike dayon kanina, atong una nga problem hello world, ang ato i-print lang ani is island dayon. Once we try to run the code here, we expecting nga naa user input. If I enter 2, it will print 012. Bakit 012? Because we started with 0. Sorry. It should be 1 because the problem is 1 to n. Okay, sorry. So let's rerun the code. Enter ko 2. So na ako'y 1, 2. Okay? Let me just add something here para na ay separator ang ato ang result. Okay. Let's just put this line. Okay. Para pag ikuan na ako na ay ma-print ni siya ay pa ang output sa ato ang loop. Okay? So I print 2. Okay, so taman dira ang input, then ang result ako is 1, 2. Okay. When I try to rerun the program again, the code 5 will have 1 to 5 na dayon. Okay? Tapos run na po ko. Let's say, sir, larger number. So let's try 999. 999 or even sir, kaya ba mga 10,000 plus? Yes, of course. Wala man ay problema sa ato ang execution. Okay? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So it will going to print until moabot siya sa 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dayon. Okay? Ay then nag-exit ang ato ang loop. So this is the power of loop. Kaya niya i-execute ang multiple executions pabalik-balik with different nga mga processing and or different nga mga outputs on a given or sa every time mo loop siya or balik sa iyahang execution. Okay? So this is the problem number 2. So you're printing just the n, the value of 1 to n as base as n for a user input. Okay. So I hope nakasabtan. So kato basic lang kani printing hello world. This one is printing just the value sa imuhang loop. Then let's have another example here. It will be the last example siguro probably. So what we're going to do here is, let's say we are going to, let's say, print the even numbers. Even numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. So let me just change this one here. What are the even numbers? Okay. So even numbers are those 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay? Muma na ang even numbers between 1 to 10. However, hindi na ito na siya i-print na. Print 2, print 4, print 6, print 8, print 10. We're just going to make use of a looping structure here. Okay. So, question. Kapila na ito ipadagan ang loop. So, kaya nga nga problem, obvious, it's 10 times. So, kung 10 times, tapos print niya ang even numbers between 1 to 10, it is very easy. Kaya nga, no, kabalo naman nga, ang ato ang initialization can start with 1, 1 to 10 man, kapulo siya iparan. So, I is less than or equal to 10. Kani, kapulo niya iparan ang code or ang ato ang loop, including with I++. Okay? I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10, tapos I++. Okay. Just like kanina, let's try to run the code kung ma-print na niya ang 1 to 10. And then later na dahil nato kung i-verify kung even or not or add ba siya. Okay, so kanina code, i-print sa niya ang 1 to 10. Run na to. Well, as ato ang gi-show ganina, it's obvious that it will work as it should be. Okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. However, dili kaniyang gusto sa problem. Okay? The problem tells us to print only the even numbers. So the even numbers is eto, si 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So dili apilon si 1, dili apilon si 3, 5, 7, 9 dayon. Okay? So how are we going to do this? So kabaluman ta na every time mo balik ang loop, ma-process niya or makuha na to ang value sa I. Okay? Na nag-start sa 1. So if you can still remember, even number, kapag mo check the even number, way back atong previous discussion nato in conditional control structures, we discuss on finding the even and the odd numbers. And nagamit ta ato og modulus na operator. Okay? So if you can still remember, the modulus operator, the modulo is yang result ana niya is the remainder. Okay? So meaning, for example, let's say 2 modulus 2, ang result ana is 0. Nganong 0? 2 divided by 2 is 1. The remainder, 0. So 0 ang result ani nga operation. Now, nganong gagamit ang modulus? It's obvious because all even numbers, kapag i-add, kapag i-divide nimo na siya og 2, ang remainder ana is always 0. So, kapag 2 is 2 divided by 2, 1, remainder 0. 2 divided by 4, ang remainder is 0. Ang 6, 0, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, ang atong basihan ani, kapag ang number, gimodulo nato siya sa 2, kung ang value ana is 0, even. Kung dili is odd. So, we are going to incorporate itong if nato dire inside sa for loop. Mo pala purpose ani nga problem. Okay? I want you to know also nga dili lang printing ang kaya buhaton sulod sa ato ang loop. It can do complex and even advanced nga mga execution. So for this one, again, the problem is to find the even numbers from 1 to 10. Okay? So, if ang I daw, the current value of our loop here, kapag i-modulus nato siya sa 2, kapag equal to 0, if namoblema mo ani, go back atong condition nato sa if, recall na siya or review lang din na siya. So, if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, meaning kapag equal to 0 ang remainder, meaning even. So, i-print nato ang I. Okay? Now, short lang or brief lang recap. If the condition is true, execute. If the condition is false, dili siya mo-execute. Pero since sulod man siya sa for loop, magbalik-balik gyapon na siya until such time moabot siya sa 10. Again, ang dagan ani nga loop is from 1 to 10 nga ato ang gipa-run. So for example, first dagan sa loop. Okay. Let's trace the output here. Okay. So I is equal to 1. Okay. Is I less than or equal to 10. So kapag ang result ani is true. Okay. So pag true siya, i-execute din ng if. So nasa if dayon. So, sa ihang if nasa is I modulus to 2 equal to 0 ba siya? Okay? So kapag true, print, kapag dili siya i-print. We're going to move here kaya medyo kailangan itaas yung space dere. So, is I modulus 2 equal to 0? Kung sa current value sa tong I, 1. Okay? So, ang result ani is false. So, wala siya i pero mo plus plus ta kay mo balik naman pud ni siya sa iyang loop. Kaya ang atong loop is true pa man gihapon. So, I is equal to is I less than or equal to 10. The result is true gihapon. Okay. Is I modulus to 2 equal to 0. Now, our I here is 2. Is 2 modulus 2 equal to 0? 2 divided by 2 is 1. Remainder is 0. So, meaning, ang result na to ana is true. So, i-print niya ang value sa imuhang I. So, ang result sa imong I is 2. Okay? Ako na lang yung i-copy and paste para mas dali. So, pag abot dire, kapag 3 na dayon, okay, kung mangyahapon na siya dire, is I modulus 2 or 3 modulus 2 equal to 0 false. Okay? Pero pag abot niya og 4, ingani, 4. Kumana siya. Is 4 modulus 2 equal to 0. 4 divided by 2 is 2, remainder 0. So, i-print niya ang value nga 4. So, ingani ang ato ang tracing sa inyong result dayon, which give us the result nga 2, 4, 6, 8 up to 10. Let's wait for the execution. Ayun. Tara, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So ingana ang iyahang execution sa ato ang loop ani. So ganina wala man ni. So i-print niya tanan. Okay? I'm showing it to you right now. Ayun. That's 1 to 10. Then include nato dire para i-verify niya kung even ba siya, ay ara siya i-print kung even. So we included a conditional nga control structure here nga if sulod sa for loop para ma-execute nato ang i-print niya is katulong modulus lang. Pag moabot ta sa point ani nga daghan na kay ta og curly braces, you might consider nga for example you put an inline nga comment lang din ani para di mo maglibog. Okay? So this one is main and this one is for your class. But definitely, ano lang, nagpadagan lang tag-loop, the execution lang sa loop, depende na tayo na siya. So, you need to remember first, again, kapila padaganon ang loop, aha mo magsugod, kapila padaganon, and your increment or decrement na execution. So, for this one, basic lang na i-identify na to. So, sir, what if kung gusto na ako is ang add ko dayo? So, simply, it's going to have here, for example, kapag modulus 2, greater than 0 siya. Okay? Ay araman siya ma-0 kapag even numbers. Kung kapag add, ay niya i-print dayon. So you have 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 for the add numbers. Okay? Kung ipa-require sa inyo nga ipa-evaluate ang tanan values from a given input nga si user ang magbuot sa starting and ending point, then this one, i-change niyo na kung aha nag-start, then kani i-change po niyo na kung asa po siya nag-end. As simple as that. Then kaya niya ni i-determine kinsa ang mga add, kinsa ang mga even ana nga numbers. Okay? So let's have a siguro a last problem here. Okay? Let me just prepare my code part here para dili ta maglisod. Okay. Sige. I will be doing, oh sorry. I will be naming it as okay. So for the last problem I'm going to discuss is let's say sum of the numbers between 1 to 10. So kanina, similar lang man. We determine kung add or even siya. For now, we are computing for the sum. So ipang-add na to. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. Okay. Kaya nga natong gusto buhaton ani. Sum of the numbers between 1 to 10. So this is equal to plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 up to plus 10. That's 55. Okay. So, but dili ka na ang atong result tayon. We'll try it sa code na level. So, start working with our tawag ani, loop muna. So, for int I is equal to 0 or 1. So, the problem tells us from 1 to 10. So, let's start with 1. Okay? I is less than or equal to 10. I plus plus. Meaning, 10 na to ipa-execute ng loop. So, kapag natay print ani, let's try. Mayo man na nga i-try to daan karon kung mo-work ba ang loop from 1 to 10 kaysa mag-add na ta diretso without knowing mo na kung mo-work ni siya. At least, ma-mitigate nato kung na problem individually. So, obviously, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10. So, wala problema. The loop is working. We can make the loop work, run from 1 to 10. And we can even get the numbers from 1 to 10 dayon. So, wala problema na. Easy na. So, I'm just going to declare a variable here, sum is equal to 0. Okay. So, inside sa akong loop dayon, ipang-add ran ako siya. Again, every time mubalik ang mudagan ang loop, ang value sa I nag-change. So, the pinaka-simplest nga solution ani is sum is equal to sum plus I. Okay? Anong plus I man per? Okay. The current value of your I, i-add niya sa current value of the sum, i-assign niya sa sum. Yun. Okay? So, wait lang. Ito may tabuan na. So, let's say for example, Mo ni siya si I, mo ni siya si Sam. Okay. Now, first nga dagan sa loop, your I is equal to 1. So I is equal to 1. Ang sum is, ang ato ang code dere is, sum is equal to sum plus 1. Okay? So sa values ato ang sum dere, 0 plus 1 equal to 1. So nagdagan na pod kaduha ang loop. So plus plus man. So ang loop now or ang I becomes 2. Okay? What's the current value of your sum? That's 1 plus I, this one here, plus I, meaning the value for I is 2. So now, sum is equal to 3. So, katulad na nag-run atong loop ni, katulad ng balik, rather. What's the current value of your sum? 3. Plus, what's the current value of your I? 3. So, the result here is equal to 6. Okay? Kaupat dagan sa loop, your I becomes 4. The current value of your 6 na noon is of your sum is 6 plus 4 is equal to 10 and so on and so forth na dayon. Okay? So, that is how we trace the problem, trace the program. So, after sa loop, dili lang ako siya i-print nga no. Kung i-print na ako dire, kapulo po siya mag-print. So, I'm going to print it here. Okay? Meaning, after siya na-compute na loop, from 1 to 10, ay pa lang ko siya i-print outside sa ako ang loop. So once I'm going to try to run the code, the result is 55. Okay? So sir, gusto lang makita kung katong iyahang tawag ani. If I'm going to, wait lang. If I'm going to include this one here, ako siya i-move na lang dito. Okay? So, kapulo po ni siya mo print lang po dayon. Okay? Depende sa result dayon. So, mo to siya kung gitrace kanina dayon. Okay? So, pag first nga run sa loop, ang values ng sum is 1. Second na run sa loop is 3. Third na run sa loop is 6. Fourth nga run sa loop is we have the value of sum is 10. 10, nadugangan na po dayon o 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then 10 plus 45 plus 10, you have 55 na result dayon sa inyong loop. Okay? So, this is basic lang. This is similar to basic ng mga problems that can be solved using for loop and looping a structure. Yes, kaya na siya sa while. Wala problema if you can do it with while. But as you can see also, mas dali isulat ang imong for loop compare sa while loop. Okay? So, there are activities also attached sa Google Classroom. You find the Google Classroom for lesson number 4. Since this is lesson number 4 and chapter number 7, naapoy sample nga mga coding problems and coding samples nga naka-attach ani. And if na mga questions, you do comment at one sa chat, sa tuang chat. And if you're watching the video, don't forget to comment your name for your attendance. Thank you.